So are you a mother that struggles with anxiety and depression? In today's video, I'm going to be giving you 5 tips on how I ended my battle with anxiety and depression. And be sure to watch all the way through because number 5 is so important. Hopefully the wind chimes and the chickens and the sheep and all the farm noises won't be too distracting for the purpose of this video today. Back in the day, this would have been a 40. Hey, what's up friends? Thanks so much for tuning into my channel. I'm Heather and I'm just trying to keep it together. I'm a certified anxiety coach and hypnotherapist. Here on this channel, I inspire moms to live well-balanced, creative, stress-free lives so they can be the whole authentic version of themselves, all while raising amazing humans. Here we talk about personal growth, wellness, manifestation, and much, much more. So be sure to hit that subscribe button so that we can keep it together. All right, now let's get into it. The fact of the matter is that being a mother or a caretaker or whatever you are to a child is the hardest job on the planet. I think that was declared by Forbes magazine, I'm not sure. But it's heavy duty business, as many of you know. I personally have struggled with anxiety and depression since about the age of 9, and when I became a mother, wow, this just really increased it. I always say that the worst part about being a parent is the worrying. But before I get started, I want to make sure that you know that I'm not a psychologist, I'm not a doctor. I am just someone that is sharing my personal experience and what has helped me, so take it or leave it. I think it's super important that if you are struggling with anxiety and depression, that you absolutely seek out professional help, because it can be so easy to just say, it's fine, this is just motherhood, this is just the way it is. It's like you acclimate and you just get comfortable with the pain and the suffering, when really there are people that are totally well equipped and helping you crawl out of that hole. And becoming a mother can really activate anxiety and depression even more so, I feel. Not only was I more worried and anxious about everything, but I also really mourned the loss of my identity. And I think that's something that we don't really talk a lot about in becoming a mother. But yeah, in terms of the loss of identity, I mean, I just essentially felt like a milkmaid right after I had my daughter, and I didn't know who I was anymore. So now that my daughter is almost 5 years old, I have to say that as they get older, it's definitely easier. I remember people would tell me that and I'd be like, yeah, that makes sense. And now that I'm actually in the phases of her being more independent, doing stuff for herself, being able to communicate, she goes to preschool, which gives me some free time. Things are definitely a lot easier. Is parenting still overwhelming? Yes. I mean, it's just gonna always be a thing. I think even when you're 60 and your kid is 30 or however old you are, I think parenting is always gonna have its challenges. But as I say, it does get easier. And we just have to keep persevering. But after really utilizing these 5 tips, I've really been able to become a much more calm, peaceful, and joyful mother. So let's just get started. Number 1 is learn how to hold space for yourself. I'm sure you've heard this a million times, and I sort of mean it in a different way. Of course, I mean that you should make time for yourself if you can. If you have the support of a partner or other family members that can maybe take the baby for a little while, or however old your kid is, to just help you out a little bit so that you can have some time to yourself, do that for sure. And don't do chores. Chores will always be there. There will always be dishes. There will always be laundry. There will always be dusting. There will always be that shit. But there will not be this time period that you have. And that is for you to restore and resource yourself so that you can be the most mindful, present mother that you can be. And yes, so when I mean hold space for yourself, I do mean maybe go meditate and go for walks in nature and all that stuff. Trying to make time where you're sort of bringing your nervous system down, not necessarily getting on your phone and watching a TV. Yes, sometimes that stuff is super great too. I mean, you need to do what you need to do, but trying to do things that are less stimulating so you can bring your nervous system down is great. But what I really mean here in terms of holding space is that When you find yourself getting activated and starting to feel overwhelmed, really just like take a moment to be mindful and pause and just hold space. Like literally sometimes I just hold myself because I need to pause and see what's going on in my body, and not all up in here, you know. You just need to like pause and hold and see what's happening. What are you experiencing right now in your body? Oftentimes when we're experiencing anxiety and depression, we might have things that we do to sort of ignore it or drown it out. We have a million different ways that we could cope. But what we really need to learn to do is to recognize and become aware of what's going on and allow ourselves to swim around in what's happening without dwelling on it, but just enough that you can observe and become more aware and conscious of what's happening. My second tip is to balance your hormones. Now, I am not an expert in this area at all. I'm not a doctor, so I literally have read like one book and it is called In the Flow. It's by Alisa Vitti, I think is how you say her name. She does tons of medical research, and she's been studying menstruation for like the last 20 years. And essentially what I really got out of this book was, one, being able to recognize when my hormones are out of balance, being able to actually recognize it by your menstruation blood, which is really fascinating. And, you know, immediately after having a baby, some women don't get their periods back for quite a while. I was able to get mine back fairly quickly, and not having your period is can really throw your hormones off, you know. And we want to have like a nice rhythm and a nice cycle, a 28-day cycle. But anyway, paying attention to this cycle has been hugely beneficial in terms of knowing when my energy is up, when my energy is down, when I might notice that some bluesy feelings are coming on. And being able to really plan my life out around my 28-day cycle has been a tremendous help in decreasing my anxiety and depression. I don't accidentally schedule a social event when I'm not in the phase that it would be most conducive for socializing. I know that before I menstruate, I might be a little bit more exhausted and irritable, and so that might be a better time to stay in and have more self-care, and even maybe schedule some babysitting just so I can have some alone time and rest my body. My third tip is figure out what your needs are and actually communicate them. This might seem so simple, but it's so hard. As women, we have been brought up in a culture, I think many cultures have brought females up to be quiet, sit still, smile, be nice. They've told us what to do with our bodies. It's a patriarchal culture, so we have been taught and conditioned for generations to not listen to what our needs are, and therefore we have mom guilt all the time for doing anything for ourselves and thinking about our own needs. But we really need to learn to meet our own needs so that we can meet the needs of others. It's like they say, put your oxygen mask on before you help the other person on the airplane, right? It's gonna take some practice, but it's important that you do try to figure out what your needs are and practice expressing them. As a new mom, you may want to take a Friday night to go explore some new things that you want to incorporate into your identity, your new identity as a mom. Maybe you want to get back to doing some of the things you did before you were a mom. Maybe you just want to take a nap. I don't know. Whatever it is that you need, you have to find a way to communicate it without blaming or victimizing, and feeling safe in your body to do it. It's just gonna feel a little uncomfortable because we're not used to doing it. You just have to push through. Finding ways to communicate it healthfully is gonna be so beneficial for you. Side note, I'm gonna give you a little bonus tip. If you're struggling to know what it is that you even need and you're finding this to be a constant source of frustration, I highly recommend that you get yourself in to see a therapist or even an anxiety coach like myself to help you figure it out, so that you can start meeting your needs much sooner. Don't go this path alone. It is much faster if you have someone reflecting back to you what it is that they're picking up on and what they're hearing you say. Sometimes that's really hard to do on your own, and it can be a long, frustrating path. Believe me, I know from experience. Tip number 4, and this may seem so obvious, but go for walks in nature. We all know that exercise can really alleviate anxiety and depression, but it doesn't have to be a full-on gym session. Just going for walks in nature can simply alleviate that anxiety and depression and allow you to clear your head enough to know what you need to help you feel calm in your body. It can also balance your hormones. I'm fortunate to live in an area where I'm surrounded by nature, so I feel like it's easy. I can just go for a walk on my property or somewhere nearby. There's plenty of hikes. But even when I did live in the city, and I grew up in a fairly big city, I would always find walking paths and all sorts of trails in the inner city that alleviated that anxiety and depression for me all the time. I used to go for like 3-mile walks every day after work. So get your baby in the stroller, get out for a walk. And even if your kiddo is a little bit older like mine, she's always looking for banana slugs, and we just take it slow. This isn't about building up an intense sweat. This is just about getting outside, smelling the fresh air, getting off of the screens, getting away from the house. And for my favorite, number 5, do the deep inner work. The biggest thing, and especially with anxiety, is that we often just don't feel good in our body. We don't feel safe in our body. Anxiety is a physiological experience. So is depression. And so we need to learn to access the feeling of safety in the body by calming the nervous system down. And we can do this, as I mentioned in number 4, by going for walks, but also through sound, through movement, through meditation. But to really get down to the very root of why you're even experiencing anxiety and depression, I highly recommend working with a coach or a therapist on inner child and shadow work. This has been the most important aspect of my healing and ending the battle with anxiety and depression. This was a thing that shifted everything for me. To dig down deep into my history, there was just so much that I didn't realize was going on with me that I sorted out through doing this work. And we don't all have to have these huge, big traumatic events happen to us to feel like wounded people. We can have little traumas. All of us are wounded to some degree or another. And as parents, we all do the best that we can, and our parents did the best that they could with what they had. But now that we're grown adults, evolved adults, we get to go in and do this deep inner work on ourselves so that we can truly heal anxiety and depression at its core. When we really learn to heal on a deep, deep level and learn to love ourselves truly in an embodied way, life becomes 100, 1,000,000, trillion times easier. And when we do this healing work on ourselves, we can learn to hold more space for ourselves. We have more capacity to experience life, all of it, the good, the bad, the ups, the downs, the anxiety, the depression. It becomes more spacious. And we then have more space to hold for our children and other relationships that we have. Okay guys, that is my 5 tips for ending the battle with anxiety, especially as a mom. And I want to know, let me know in the comments below, what are you doing to alleviate your anxiety and depression? And don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does let me know if you liked this video and what kind of content to make. You can also always comment in the comments. You can comment in the comments about any videos that you would like me to make, and I would be happy to answer any questions that you have around personal growth, wellness, manifestation, and much, much more. I'll see you in the next one. Oh, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss a thing. Okay, bye!